In this video today, I'm doing a simple side-by-side comparison of the Durston Gear X-Dome 1 Plus to the Durston Gear X-Dome 2. Now that the X-Dome 2 has been released, there are many people that are trying to decide on which size makes the most sense for them. Do I get the X-Dome 1 or do I go for something a little bigger with the X-Dome 2? This is meant to show the similarities and the differences of these two tents and ultimately help you decide which one makes the most sense for you. So with the tent set up here, I've got the Xdome 2 on my left and the Xdome 1 Plus on my right. I'm gonna approach a lot of what I talk about today from the perspective of a solo hiker and trying to decide which one makes the most sense for a solo hiker, because if I am going to be sleeping two people in a tent, then the two-person is gonna be the obvious choice for the maximum space instead of trying to squeeze two people into the one person. That just doesn't make sense to me. But we're going to start with the similarities of the X-Dome series of tents because they are very similar in their design. Both of them feature a outer fly material that is a 15 denier polyester with a 3,500 millimeter hydrostatic head. And then the inner tent is going to be offered in two styles. You have a regular mesh inner like you see here on the two-person and a solid inner option like you see here on the one-person. The solid inner on both options has a floor material that is a 20 denier polyester with that same 3,500 millimeter hydrostatic head, and the regular mesh inner option has a 15 denier polyester floor, again 3,500 millimeter hydrostatic head. That's a great waterproof rating for all sorts of conditions and should be just fine in any kind of rain that you would be experiencing. These are also both double wall tents, meaning that you have an outer fly and then an inner tent, and the option to be able to pitch the inner only with the carbon fiber pole set that's included with the tent. Now, additionally, both tents set up with what is known as a fly first pitch, meaning that the pole structure is on the outside of the rain fly as opposed to being on the inner tent first and then draping the rain fly over top of the pole structure and creating the structure of the tent that way. What the benefit of that is the ability to pitch the tent in the rain, keep everything dry inside of the tent, as opposed to setting up the inner first, bunch of rain falling on top of it, and then putting the rain fly over top and having to worry about wet gear because of that style of pitch. Now, lastly, something that's pretty cool about these two tents is they use the same number of stakes. Even though the one-person version has one less door and one less vestibule, there's still the same number of stakes and they are fully freestanding tents. So the pole structure goes to all four corners, and a unique aspect about the tents is the vestibule area does not protrude or extend really far past the corners of the tent, and there's still a fully protected area for you to have the door open, some rain falling, and it not be getting into the tent, which is really cool. It's a unique design to the X-Dome that's really fun. It makes it easier for you to pitch into some tighter locations as well, because you don't have this big vestibule extending beyond the tent, which often goes into a bush or a tree or just into an area that is a bit harder for you to stake that section out. But you still have very large vestibules in the tent area for you to place all the gear that you would need to store those items and have plenty of living space inside of the tent. Let's jump into the specifics of the X-Dome 2, and then we'll talk about the X-Dome 1 Plus. Now, something I'm really excited to be seeing with a lot of new two-person tents coming out on the market is the design meant to fit two people, or in other words, two 25-inch wide sleeping pads inside of the tent. That is exactly what you can do with the X-Dome 2. The floor size of the tent is 52 inches wide. So you've got plenty of space for you to put those two 25-inch wide pads, rectangular pads, into the tent, and it's not a tapered floor. It's just a nice big living space. You also have 88 inches of length on the floor, which again makes for a lot of living space and for taller people to enjoy the space as well, because you do have fairly vertical walls at the head and foot end of the tent, and so you don't have to worry about really steep angles and it reducing, once you get 10, 12 inches up off of the ground, a lot of the space within inside of the tent. That's a benefit of a freestanding tent, as well as just all of that extra living space because of the pole structure and not having as steep of angles coming in on your sidewalls like you would see with a trekking pole tent. You also have 43 inches of peak height on the inner, which makes for a lot of space to sit up and move around and not feel like you are super crowded inside when you are sharing the space with two people. Now, a potential downside of a tent of this size, being a two-person size tent, is as a solo hiker, is it too much space? Is it just a huge footprint and going with a one-person size tent makes more sense? That's totally up to you and for you to decide based off of your goals and your backpacking and camping style and what you want out of the tent. But dimension-wise, that's what you got with the Xdome 2. Now you also have 2 doors and 2 vestibules, and they are offset from each other. So they don't open the same direction on either side. They are offset, and that's just the way that this is designed. And you have very large vestibule spaces inside of the tent. The inner also has 4 pockets on the Xdome 2. You have 2 big mesh pockets along the wall up off of the floor, and then some smaller mesh pockets into the side of the inner tent for those smaller gear items. And then lastly, the weight and the cost of the Xdome 2. This starts at a price point of $469 USD. It goes up depending on what options you choose for, like a solid inner, the short pole set, and the weight is also 2 pounds 7 ounces, or 39 ounces, which is a great weight for a 2-person size tent, especially splitting that between 2 people. It's a great option to maximize weight savings and have maximum living space as well. Now, the Xdome 1 Plus is pretty much unlike any other 1-person size tent that I have used in a freestanding design. What's unique about it is, again, you have this fully freestanding tent with the vestibule that doesn't protrude super far beyond the pole set, but also the way that the floor is shaped to just increase the amount of space that you have inside of the tent. You have a 42-inch peak height, so a 1-inch difference over the Xdome 2, but the floor shape is really what's different. 29 inches at the foot end, or the narrow end of the tent, which I'm not even really going to call it the foot end. I shouldn't call it that. Just the narrow end of the floor, and then full 50 inches of width at the wide end of the floor. That provides a huge amount of space for you to put gear and things inside that, if you were using what you might see on a lot of 1-person size tents, is a 28 or 30, maybe 32-inch wide floor that may even taper and get more narrow at one end that feels like a coffin. It's just a really narrow space. But you do have a little bit larger overall footprint of the Xdome 1 Plus because of that floor size than it might be of a other kind of 1-person size fully freestanding tent. You have 1 door and 1 vestibule with the 1 Plus Xdome, and it is a large vestibule area. It's a big space, plenty of area for you to put a backpack and other gear items to store and get out of the rain and keep dry. And then just a big flat panel over here that also stakes out for it to have more structure and stability, but no gear storage or anything on that backside. And then lastly, the price you pay for the Xdome 1 Plus is starting at $379 USD. Add a little bit more if you opt for the solid inner like I've got here, as well as the short pole set that is available with this tent. Weight-wise, it comes in at just about 35 ounces of weight, which is a nice weight for a full freestanding tent, just over 2 pounds, and the amount of space that this provides for enjoying yourself out in the backcountry. Now, if we just take a look at the inside space of the Xdome 2 here, I've got 2 25-inch wide rectangular pads set up inside of the inner, and it just gives you an idea of how much space is actually in here, and the fact that you can get 2 rectangular pads in here and it not be pushing super hard against the sidewalls or be creating a big issue with just the way that the inner functions. There are plenty of pockets for two people to store all of their individual gear items and also sleep in any direction that you would like, for feet to be at the same end, heads to be at the same end, or to sleep in opposite directions if that is what you would like to do. Now, for one person, this is going to be a palace. It is a huge space, but if you are having to spend a lot of time inside of your tent to wait out a storm, or you want to invite a friend to come in and play a game of cards or whatever it is, you have the space to be able to do that. Plenty of peak height at both ends of the tent as well. And then for the space that you have here inside the ONE+ Xdome, I'm sitting at the narrow end of the tent, and the Xdome ONE+ inner has been updated to be a little bit wider than the initial release of the tent. So I have a few inches of space here at the narrow end, which just makes it, if I am sleeping with my head at this end, a bit more comfortable, a little less claustrophobic, and more side-to-side space to move around. And then all of that space at my feet, if I am sleeping in this orientation, to put all of that gear and have it out of the vestibule, but easy to reach out and pull the zipper down for the vestibule door and close everything up. This is a nice space for one person, but I'm not really ever going to consider putting two people in here. So back to the beginning of the video, if I am thinking about putting two people in a tent, I'm just gonna go with the Xdome 2. Now, this video was not meant to be a full review or a breakdown of pros and cons of the tents. It's simply to show the differences and the similarities of the Xdome series of tents, the ONE+ and the 2, and to help you see what those differences are, so that if you are trying to decide between one or the other, this can help you gather more information on which one might make the most sense for you. If you do want to see a deeper breakdown of the Xdome ONE+, which I have a considerable amount of experience with, I've got that video linked down in the description. I am still testing and putting the Xdome 2 through the paces and testing it for its time out in the field, and after a much more considerable amount of time, I will do a full review on this and speak to the differences of my experience between the two. Again, this is purely informational to show those similarities and differences, so that if you are in the market for either of these tents, it gives you a better idea of what is going on in a better way than just seeing specs and information on a web page. So I want to thank you guys for watching today. If you're not subscribed to the channel, you know what to do. Hope you have an awesome day. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later.